the moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Mike Mjolnir Evans. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, what is that I hear? Is that the roar of some kind of woodland creature in the background? I think his ears are burning. We're about to talk about our friend, your friend, Sasquatch, Yeti, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call him. Susan. Now this week, you can add Susan to his list of many, many names.
I like it.
In many ways, this episode is a placeholder because we really want to talk about Endgame, but none of us have seen it yet.
No, and we can't. Yeah, we're like less than a week away, boys.
This leads nicely into our first news item. Jeff, what do you think about the preponderance of articles, speculations? Maybe there's some facts out there, the people trying to spoil this for us.
It's disgusting. There is somebody, I think, who's actually, if you follow the hashtag Don't Ruin Endgame, it ruins it for you. Some knucklehead who has seen the movie in a preview screening or whatever is making it his mission on social media to ruin it for the rest of us. So I say maintain radio silence.
Can we give him the bird right now collectively?
Yes. Oh, well, the bird. Oh,
I offer a toucan. What do you offer?
Toucan. I'm going to go with an emu.
Ostrich.
There you go, mister. You got the bird. Birds, plural.
Come on. What gratification are you getting out of this?
Right. And where do you live?
Correct. Right. So I do know people who have who've already been spoiled.
Unless he's very insidiously putting out false information. So when you go see the movie, it will actually be a surprise. Because
would it make you mad that you thought you had it ruined and then you're like, wait a minute, that didn't happen?
I would take back my birds immediately if that were to happen.
We're sorry.
Give me back my toucan.
I don't know. I don't know why people feel the need, but just putting it out there, people. It's rampant. You got to just put your head down, turn off your social media. Don't watch the news. Don't talk to your friends.
Close your eyes when the trailer comes on.
Yeah.
I've stayed away from the trailer so far.
So have I.
Thursday and Friday are going to be the worst days. That's where you're really going to have to worry about it. Because I know some knucklehead's going to call in sick to work. He's going to go see a screening and then come in and immediately want to talk to me about it. All right. That's all. We do have one more news item, but I want to hold off and I want to bring it up at the end of this episode. Only because, bizarrely, it ties both of these TV show and movies that we're going to discuss today.
So since we're saving that to the end, let's get right into our feature film. I actually want to get this out of the way so I can talk about our classic feature this week because that
is going to be a little more fun. The missing link, I almost missed it altogether. I was able to see the very last screening last night.
As I understand it, you hopped off of your Easter dinner and ran out of the house to go see this. Is that correct?
That is correct. I did.
Mid-dinner, Jeff gets
priorities. Listen, the thing is that we go for Easter dinner. Usually, we had on Saturday, not on a Sunday. So that worked to our advantage since we record on Sunday mornings. But the other thing is that usually everybody comes, they eat like animals and locusts and then disperse by 7:00. So the screening was 6:55. It was right down the road from where I was. So I didn't really feel that I was missing out on too much. So and this movie was nice and short.
It was, but you probably had an out. Like, as you were getting up to leave, somebody probably asked you, oh, what movie are you rushing out to see?
Yes.
Missing link. And then that was it.
And then you got the blank stare. And I'm like, it's a kid's movie. I actually asked my two nieces, who are, I think, 9 or 11, and neither one were like, nah, I'm good. Thanks. So you're like the prime target for this movie. And they were like, yeah, I'm good. You have fun there, Jeff.
I can't foresee that we're going to have much to say about this.
Oh, I could go on and on about this.
Really?
Do we want to get into it right now? I like this a lot.
I think there's no time better than now to get into it, yes.
That is true. Well, I feel that Leica, the studio, which kind of has come out of nowhere, is really becoming like this little studio that could. They are just chugging along and creating these little pieces of art that I know that a lot of people are not going to see, because obviously the kids had no interest to go see this. But artistically, I find it amazing. And this is all stop motion. If anybody doesn't know that, this is old school stop motion,
which was amazing animation to me. This is so clean and
so here's the thing, which is it's not like Aardman, which is Wallace and Gromit, where you can actually see the fingerprints in the clay as they move in the figure. They do clean it up in CG. And if you look, there's a fair amount of water scenes that go on here, and that is all CG.
Now, I did notice that looking at some of the behind-the-scenes stuff that they have out there online, that they use a lot of green screen, blue screen as well. So everything that you're seeing isn't practical, as you said.
Right, but still, that doesn't take away from the fact that the worlds that they're building are just these gorgeously lush, full-colored, textured environments. I mean, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the story. The story itself is pretty simple, but the stuff that's going on around it is pretty impressive from an artistic point of view.
Now, I'm surprised that it didn't do better. As of today, it's barely broken $10 million at the box office. It's been out for over a week. It is the least money-making movie in the Leica stable. Even less.
And they've only had like 5. I think this is their 5th movie.
Yeah. And it seems to me that this would be commercially more accessible than...
They really, I will say, commercial-wise, they've really promoted this a lot more than I ever remember, like Kubo or even Paranorman.
Paranorman.
Like Coraline, on the other hand, I think got a big, and that's the stuff. So Coraline and Paranorman and even Box Trolls, a little dark, a little more.
Yeah, but Coraline had that pedigree, that Neil Gaiman pedigree to it. So
yeah, but this is the director. Chris Butler did direct Kubo and the Two Strings, and he directed this as well. But I think it's a lighter take. It's a little more, to me, it was almost like one of those Bing Crosby, Bob Hope road movies. Right? It's a buddy film.
Yeah.
It is.
But it has this British sensibility to it. There's a little bit of Wallace and Gromit thrown in, but the jokes are just hysterical. I laughed out loud numerous times throughout this movie.
There may be more Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Maybe I was just dating myself extensively there. Am I the only one who liked this?
No, I liked it. The thing with me is it was just so kind of middle of the road. It was funny. It was enjoyable, but it was, a distraction. That, for me, that's what it was. It wasn't something that stuck in my head for a couple of days afterwards, beyond the impressiveness.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, the fact that maybe I just saw it last night is sticking with me a little more.
It's a very fun, inoffensive. It's not like watching Hellboy where you're angry that you're sitting there watching it, looking at your watch. It's a nice way to pass 90 minutes. My son enjoyed it. It's a very pleasant movie to watch, but for me, nothing more than that.
Yeah, pleasant, wholesome. It was good. I mean, that's all you can really say about it.
See, maybe I was just taken in by the artwork and the spectacle of it and the craftsmanship that goes in. Like even the opening shot introducing, what was his name? Sir Lionel Frost, who's played by Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman, yes.
And it's just a sweeping vista camera shot over Loch Ness through purple fog, and the camera swings around and comes and settles right. Him and his valet are in a boat, a little rowboat, and the camera, it's all one shot, comes swooping in and then kind of rests on his lap as he has the cup of tea, and then the camera tilts up as he's drinking it. Like, to me, that's pretty impressive.
It was probably my favorite scene of the movie.
Yeah, the opening shot, the little Loch Ness monster encounter was very fun, and he was neat looking. He looked like something right out of the Flintstones. He wasn't like a
he did
straight up.
Yeah, and I did like the whole cryptozoology aspect of this.
I actually wanted to see more of that, to be honest with you. But that's obviously, if you sit through the end credits, it's like all the notes and everything. It's like whatever next adventure they're going on is being set up. But like you said, if it didn't do that well in the theater, there may not be a sequel.
As I was doing some research out there, looking at some of the articles that people have written about this movie, Some people are saying, well, is this a comment on immigration? Is it a comment on evolution, on religion? Yeah, it's a kid's movie. Just
I
sit
did
back
not
and
get
enjoy
any
it.
kind of social media or any kind of ecological or
Because
social.
the plot is very simple. It's Sir Lionel Frost wants to get into this elite band of explorers, and to do so, he has to prove that Bigfoot exists.
And this is a period piece. That's tell everybody. This is a period piece, which is like late 19th century.
Yep, right around the turn of the century.
You see, as they're leaving the steamer ship, you do see the Statue of Liberty in New York under construction. So to me,
So he's got to prove that Bigfoot exists, and he gets a letter from the Pacific Northwest saying that, from someone anonymously saying that they know where to find Bigfoot. Lo and behold, Bigfoot himself, or Susan, as he's later to be called, has written Sir Lionel this letter, and not only can he write and read, but he can also speak English as well.
Excuse me. I think I've got a little something stuck in my... There it is. In my throat. Like a nut or a field mouse or something like that. I don't know. Am I rambling? I'm a little nervous.
And Bigfoot is played by the wonderful Zach Galifianakis. And he's just great in any anime. He's been in quite a few animated films voicing characters, and I just love him in this. But it's funny, I read somewhere where he wishes that in the future that he can play an animated character that's not portly.
Good luck with that. He could go down that Jonah Hill road where he loses a lot of weight.
Maybe he could, yeah. It's in his voice. It can't be helped.
And I did read a review where they're like, here's Galifianakis just playing himself. And I don't really think he was. I mean,
no, he's very understated in this.
I loved this character. You never really, they call him, Frost does label him Mr. Link because he's the missing link, and that's a little running joke. But you really don't. The fact that he so just grabs onto the name Susan, and there's a story associated with why he chooses Susan as the name. But otherwise, he's kind of like genderless. He's not, his voice is very soft. It's very kind of non-concrete, although he does roar incredibly loud. I thought the voice actors was spot on. I mean, Hugh Jackman, again, a little pompous, a little full of himself, this character. But and
Zoe Saldana as Adelina Fortnite. That's quite.
Was she channeling her inner Selma Hayek? Because
that's what I was thinking. Because the character looks like Selma Hayek.
She looks like Selma Hayek.
Yeah. Maybe they couldn't get Salma Hayek, and Zoe was the second choice. Who knows?
Yeah, that's pretty funny, though.
So the plot is just Sir Lionel Frost finding Bigfoot, and Bigfoot wishing to join someone else like him, because he's the only one of his kind in his area of the United States. So he wants to go to the Himalayas to find the Yetis, his cousins, and perhaps he can assimilate himself into their society. So Sir Lionel Frost, in exchange for getting some proof from Bigfoot, which includes
a poop sample.
Proof? What kind of proof? Incontrovertible evidence of your existence to prove my doubt was wrong. Like hair samples, a tooth, nail clippings, feces.
Well, I have all those things. That seems like a fair deal.
Oh, you want that sample now? Like, that's the one, the running joke with Mr. Link, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever, Susan, is that he just takes everything literal. He doesn't understand humor. So there's a scene where they're trying to break over a wall, and Frost is going through his bag, and he's like, here, throw this rope over the wall. And it's all rolled up, and he just takes it, and he throws the whole thing over the wall.
And then he says sarcastically, why don't you just throw the bag too? And then he throws the bag over the wall.
I only had a handful of people in the theater with me, and I laughed out loud quite a few times. It kind of hit my funny bone on this one.
So, of course, they find the Yetis in the Himalayas, but the Yetis want nothing to do with Susan.
And that's a great scene, because, so then it becomes a road flick. They've got to go from the Pacific Northwest back to New York. He's being tracked and hunted by this other character that was played by Timothy Oliphant.
Yep, Willard Stank. What a wonderful name.
Stank. Yep. Stunk. So that's a little bit of a plot line. And there's a great chase sequence on the steamer train, at a steamer boat, where they're in the middle of a storm, and they're hitting like perfect storm size waves, and the boat's turning sideways, and they're being chased through the hallways, which was kind of entertaining. But yeah, they get all the way to the Yetis, and immediately she's like, oh, the country cousin. You're the redneck hillbilly. He's like, oh, I'm kind of an auburn color, really. Yeah, and they turn out to be jerks.
Yeah, and voiced by Emma Thompson, the queen
Emma
of the
Thompson,
Yeti.
who we just she was in Treasure Planet. The takeaway from this is that both these characters wanted something that at the end of the day they realized they had within them. Susan wants to go to be with like-minded Bigfoots, and all Frost wants to do is be accepted into this elite club. Why he wanted to be a part of this club, I have no idea, because they were just complete
they were D-bags, yeah.
I mean, they were the ones who hired the guy to kill him. And he realized at the end that we don't need these people to make us fulfill who and what we are. So yeah, they become partners in the end. But I will say that whole sequence, it literally is a giant cliffhanger where there's a beautifully made ice bridge and there's a big showdown there, and of course the ice bridge gives way and they're literally hanging from the side. I thought that was very intense.
Yeah,
that was very, very well done.
I think harkens back to Indiana Jones Temple of Doom.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot,
The
even the cutaways. Like I said, it's a road film. So you see Lush at one point, they're in India riding an elephant, or they're in the Old West in a stagecoach. So there's a lot of environments. There's a lot of really neat textural, visceral stuff going on around them, even though the storyline itself is really kind of cookie cutter. But I wish more people would go see this, because I thought it was very funny and I thought it was very well done. And it was beautiful to look at. Absolutely.
And the fact that Hellboy beat this in its opening weekend makes me angry.
Yeah.
And I love the little snippet that you see at the end.
I know.
The credits of the behind the scenes of.
Yeah, it's like a time lapse of. Yeah. That just shows you the level of detail that these people have put into this movie. And that's, you're right. You said it makes you angry that someone has probably spent the last 2.5, 3 years of their lives making this movie, and it may or may not find its audience. But like I said, Leica's kind of making a name for itself. They have, I think, up to this point, they've really kind of partnered with Universal to put this stuff out here. But look at all these other Pixar was up and coming at the time. They were groundbreaking. They got picked up. They got bought out by Disney. Who else? Blue Sky Animation, Blue Sky Studios, taken over by Fox. So these guys are kind of like on their own right now. I didn't know this, though, which is they came from the Will Vinton animation. So go back in the 90s, the guys who made the little California Raisins commercials.
Yes.
They were looking to do more commercial ventures. And so Phil Knight, who is co-founder of Nike, owns this studio.
Leica, you're talking about.
Yep. Yeah. Ah. And that's also where Henry Selick, who came in after directing Nightmare Before Christmas, and he was in this studio for a while as a supervising director. So you got a huge pedigree. But yeah, those behind-the-scenes stuff really just blow you away. I'm not even going to get into Kubo. And that's it. I mean, I could go on and mention some of the jokes, but when they get kicked out of Shangri-La, as they call it, or as the Yetis call it.
Shangri-La? We call it...
What does it mean?
Keep out, we hate you.
But as they're leaving, he turns around and he gives them the raspberry, and he's like, "Your utopia sucks."
Now, Mike, you had brought up something earlier that I totally agree with, that it seemed like the Yetis in design were much more intricate and impressive than Susan was. Susan was just kind of a big lump.
Yeah, it was like they didn't spend much time on the Susan design, and I thought that they could have, but the background was more the star than Susan was.
Although, I mean, play into that idea that he's just a silly little country bumpkin. The Yetis have a more civilized world. There's a whole scene where the elder's sitting there and they're braiding her hair.
Yeah, he did kind of look like Oliver Hardy when he had on his clothes.
Yeah,
with this little hat.
Yeah, which was a good scene as well. He's like, "Did we have to really steal all that guy's clothes? I mean, even his underwear? I did turn it inside out, but still." There's a lot of little throwaway jokes.
Now, Jeff, did this give you your Bigfoot fix?
It was a nice taste. If they had stayed in the Pacific Northwest, you might have got a little more of a Bigfoot flavor. I did see the trailer for Abominable, which is yet another Yeti trying to get back to the Himalayas.
But a much more cutesy pie, borderline annoying take.
He reminded me a lot of Stitch.
Yes, you're right.
Just the facial, and so the little girl's got to get him back to Mount Everest, and I think that was DreamWorks. Is that DreamWorks? I think it was.
I believe you're right. Yes.
I don't know. We'll get into it, which was, these Bigfoots were pretty big back in the 70s, and maybe they're making a comeback.
Yes, they were. So before we leave this, how many buckets are we going to give Missing Link?
I'm going to go a lot higher than you boys. I'm definitely at least 4.25.
Really?
I just for, again, the artistic merit. There's a scene where they're just walking from left to right across the screen, and they're having a conversation. And I found myself completely mesmerized. They're walking past this huge wall of felled trees. Pacific Northwest, they say everything from, 4 feet across to like 50 feet across. And I just found myself drawn to looking at the little blade cuts in the log. It's just little details that I got lost in. It's a cute movie, but visually I thought it was very, very well
done. Now, Jeff, that particular scene that you're talking about, I saw behind the scenes on that, and it's actual logs that they put in it. That was the set.
Oh, it's real wood.
It's real wood that they had the characters walking by. Yeah, so they.
Oh, well, no wonder why it was drawn.
No wonder why it looks so realistic.
There's a lot of work going on here, because when you get a tree that's 50 feet across, obviously it's not 50 feet across.
It's not. No, it's much smaller in scale.
Probably, but you have to realize you can only have a saw so wide or so long. So how do you cut that stuff down?
Yeah. No, yeah.
That's what I got caught up in, is the world,
Yeah.
I'm definitely going a lot higher than you guys on this.
Yeah, I'm right in the middle. I liked it, but didn't love it. So it was just an enjoyable 90 minutes for me. So I'm giving it 3, right in the middle.
Okay. Now, was Harrison, did he walk away going, that was cool, or just...
He loves stop motion. He has that app on the phone where you can do stop motion Lego, you can do stop motion whatever. So he often will make his own little stop motion movies. And he loved that behind the scenes at the end. Where he saw them doing it, because he wasn't really sure up until that point that it was stop motion, because it's so good. It could have been CG, like we were saying before. It's just so fluid and so perfect.
Yeah.
And it is partly CG, but he appreciates it.
There's a certain charm. There's a certain charm to it.
So Mike, what do you got?
I go 3. Pleasant, humorous.
Okay.
You could. I was watching the scenery the whole movie.
Yeah. See, listen, 3's not bad. Out of 5.
As we mentioned before, this is a Bigfoot-centric episode. And there are so many Bigfoot movies, specials, documentaries from the 70s. It was a difficult choice to come up with something to pair Missing Link with. We finally did, and I think you'll be happy with our choice. But there were some things that we had to leave by the wayside, for now, at least. In order to honor these things, I've got a potpourri of Bigfoot trailers.
Look at you.
So once we listen to these, we'll come back and we'll talk about
homework.
Future. Yes, yeah. I couldn't leave these things alone for this episode. So here we go.
Awesome.
July 1960. While flying over a remote section of northern Canada, a Canadian aircraft patrol pilot suddenly encountered the huge shape of a strange, unknown giant. But what was it? And where did it come from? Now comes a motion picture that explores this incredible mystery. Don't miss Sasquatch, rated G.
Now showing at the Embassy, 46th Street. Starts tomorrow throughout Greater New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Watch for this ad in your local newspaper.
No one wanted to talk about it. No one would admit they had seen or heard it. The law told them to quit asking questions or leave town. Maybe folks felt if they didn't talk about the thing, it would go away. But these curious college boys wouldn't stay away from Black Lake. And that was a mistake. The Creature from Black Lake is coming to a theater near you, a Jim McCullough production. This primitive river-bottom wilderness in southern Arkansas, along with deer, duck, crane, and beaver, lurks a creature that walks upright. Whether it is a man, a monster, or a myth, no one really knows. What we do know is the people around Fouke, Arkansas say they have seen such a creature nearly 250 times since 1954. And that this creature, whatever it is, emits one of the most terrifying sounds ever recorded. G.
That's cool. That is cool. You dug deep on some of those.
I did. What we chose today, and anybody that listened last week will already know, this is not a surprise, but we mine deep into television history, and we pulled out the double episode, back-to-back episodes, when Steve Austin, the $6 Million Man, met Bigfoot.
Which was on everybody's radar. This was just like, you couldn't get home fast enough.
This was mega sweeps territory. This was right.
Two episodes.
Yeah. I can't imagine any kid not watching this back in the spring of 1976 when this originally aired, these back-to-back episodes.
And the Bionic Man, $6 Million Man, had already been on for 3 years.
This was already beloved in kiddom back
Sunday night, right? Sunday night.
What network was he on? I don't remember what network.
I want to say NBC, but I don't know if that's correct.
You're probably right. And of course, Lee Majors, married to Farrah Fawcett Majors at the time. Yes. Two pillars of TV in 1976, especially. Farrah Fawcett being on Charlie's Angels. And then, of course, within the $6 Million Man, we had that dream pairing of the Bionic Woman and Steve Austin. So
who makes a cameo?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Because she was semi-regular on this show before they gave her own.
And I didn't realize that the Bigfoot does show up on her show.
Yeah.
I don't remember that at all. Did Lee Majors ever show up on Battle of the Network Stars?
Oh, I'm sure he did. I
remember Robert Conrad was like the big guy, but
knock the battery off my shoulder.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's like iconic. But if anybody doesn't know what that, I think at some point a couple years ago they tried to re-bring this up,
but it was like the C-list network stars. It wasn't. No, you were back in the day in the 70s. This was also, I think, a sweeps show. It was probably 2 hours, and it was just very stupid sporting events like tug of war, and
or like kayak race or a relay. Yeah,
and they actually had stars from each of the three major networks from their top shows competing, and each network had their own team. And they would have like Gabe Kaplan from Welcome Back, Kotter. They'd have Linda Carter from Wonder Woman. Yep. They'd had Robert Conrad.
So you saw all of your big name stars competing. Yeah. It was nerdvana for a kid to see these actors.
It would never happen today to this extent. That would be like, having Kit Harington on from Game of Thrones or something.
Right. That would be great. Come on, someone's got to bring this back. These guys are too full of themselves.
It would be like HBO versus Showtime versus Star.
This was such a big thing that Scooby-Doo actually cribbed it. Laugh Olympics, right? Scooby-Doo had Laugh Olympics, which was all the bad guys versus the good guys.
And if you remember the movie Animal Olympics with Gilda Radner doing the voices.
Nope. Don't remember that. I don't remember that. You remember that, Mike?
No, not at all.
Okay. I guess I'll edit this out of the show then.
No, that's great because someone will probably be going, I thought I was the only person who remembered that.
Yeah, no, Animal Olympics. So getting into this. So this was a Bigfoot culture. It was a cryptozoologist culture back in the 70s. Can't belabor this point. This was before internet, before cell phones. Basically, we had three networks and the newspaper. And that was pretty much how you got your news back in those days. So things like Bigfoot, UFO, Loch Ness Monster were still mysterious and entirely possible. I'm not saying that they're not entirely possible today. Jeff, I don't want to offend you. But in today's world where everything is immediate, I think a lot of the mystery has come out of the world.
Yes, very much so. I agree.
And it was in full force back then. And everything was potentially frightening and scary to a kid. So that's why you had shows like In Search Of, but where kids were obsessed with watching things like this. Is Bigfoot real? UFOs, Loch Ness Monster. So I think shows like The $6 Million Man really mined this territory. Whoever wrote these episodes were just genius in order to capitalize on them.
Yeah, because I'll tell you one thing. I forgot the whole alien aspect of this.
Yeah.
I had no memory of that.
About that.
None.
Because you're so wrapped up in that fight. I mean, and obviously it's dated, and you watch this thing and you're just like, we were glued to this stuff.
Yeah.
The dialogue is hokey. The characters are there's an Indian, what was his name? Jim?
He's from the Hoopla tribe.
Oh, Tom. Hoopla tribe.
And apparently he's also He also a member of Starship. He is knee deep in the hoopla.
But you knew he was an Indian because he had beads on his neck. It was just, and he was like, "Oh, white men talk with forked tongue." I'm like, nobody talks like that.
Let's talk about the $6 Million Man in general. So the setup is, again, a lot of shows in the 70s and even going into the early 80s had these kind of good-hearted mercenaries, private eyes, or investigators that had some kind of either a superpower, some kind of an aspect that was a novelty. You had the Incredible Hulk, who was just kind of wandering through the country, doing good deeds. You had Kung Fu, which was also that kind of a setup. You had the A-Team. They were kind of on the run and outlaws. Yep. So all these good-hearted anti-heroes that were just wandering the country. But in the case of Steve Austin, he was like a private eye.
And he worked for I don't know what the OSI was, what he worked for, but I don't know what it stands for.
And Oscar was his
boss,
who would give him his assignments.
Yeah, but you're right. 1 week he's infiltrating some Russian spy, or maybe I think there was an episode where he went to the moon.
Because he was an astronaut.
He was an astronaut.
He was an astronaut. Yeah.
I kind of dismissed the opening credits, that it was all like found footage kind of a thing when we talked about the top 50 sci-fi episodes on television. And rewatching that, I mean, it tells you everything you need to know about this character. And it's so iconic. It is so, I mean, even the ship. So you're right, he's an astronaut and I don't know if he's pilot testing something or whatever. It goes wrong, he crashes. But even the ship that you see in there, now this was the early 70s, we still don't have something that looks like that. So it's pretty impressive. It's a full-on explosion, and then there he is on the table, and you got to put him back together.
Yeah, and of course that iconic line, we can rebuild him. We can make him stronger, faster.
Yeah, and it's a build-up, and you see the computer graphics, which didn't even exist back then, so it was probably all like hand-drawn, little schematics of his legs, and then his arm, and then his eye.
So this reminded me, watching this episode, he's got one bionic leg and one bionic arm.
He would just run in circles.
Both arms, yeah.
Right.
Or both legs. No, he must have had two bionic legs.
I think he has two both legs. Yeah. No, there's no way. He just run himself into the ground.
And then, of course, he had the bionic eye, which was like, looking through a Pentax camera at your...
I like the fact that he could see a Bigfoot footprint 200 yards away, but he couldn't see the zipper on the back of the costume.
But let's talk about Steve Austin's superpowers. Now, this is my kind of superhero. This is the lazy man superhero. He's supposed to be running incredibly fast, but he looks like he's running very slow to me in most cases.
Yes, it's like, come on, keep up.
Of course, you've got that sound effect that gives you the impression that he's running fast. I just love
slow motion, man. You just go with it.
Yeah, where the aliens that are observing him are watching him on the screen running in slow motion, and the guy's like, remarkable.
I know, right? And there's cameras everywhere, but watching his every.
And I'd love to see that. I'd love to hear that one voice of dissent on that alien roundtable. It looks like he's moving pretty slow to me. I would just love to see like Steve Austin in one scene.
Are you watching the same show I'm watching?
Right, running in slow motion, like, and then seeing a couch and like, oh yeah, let me sit down, like. As he sits down on the couch, I've got to take a load off.
And sometimes he had just the beige shirt and beige pants, and then other times he had the running the red tracksuit.
Yeah.
Which he has in the opening credits. But
he reminded me of the sloth in Zootopia, moving so slow that he's barely perceptible.
You see someone just kind of walk by him.
Yeah.
This episode is just, I mean, it's great because, it's a great setup and it's a great build to Bigfoot's reveal. I mean, you kind of see him in the woods, you see his feet, you only see his shadow. And even so there's two geologists that just happen to be Steve's friends, and they're putting down sensors in the San Madrian fault line.
Are the San Andreas people going to sue use their name?
Could we not use San Andreas? At first I'm like, have I been saying this wrong my entire life?
Yeah. No, and I had to look this up to see if there was an actual San Madrian.
I don't know why they felt the need to. I guess they didn't want to concern anybody.
I looked up the Hoopla tribe, and that exists.
The Hoopla tribe, really?
That actually exists.
So they love you the San Madrian fault line? Because it's no fault of their own. But the husband and wife are out in the middle of nowhere, and he immediately wants to get down with her. He's like, "Hey, baby, there ain't nobody around. Let's go." It's like, oh, look, this geologist wants to get his rocks off.
So this is the pencil-thin setup for just getting Steve Austin into the woods in order for him to meet Bigfoot. Now, I wasn't aware, or I didn't remember, that Steve Austin's bionic powers are like a secret superpower. Because at one point, I don't
remember that either.
He jumps up on the truck to fix the satellite dish, and
Oscar's like, "Hey, look over there, a squirrel!
Look over there, look, yeah, look, get me some coffee. Get me some coffee over there, quick!" So the guy will turn away and not look at Steve jumping up on the truck in slow motion.
Yeah, that was weird. Oscar's got a phenomenal secret power I don't think any of us realized, which he just has the ability to repeat anything that someone says to him. So he's on the phone with the headquarters or whatever. He's like, "A legend, a beast," whatever is said to him, he just repeats it. "He turned over a truck." It's like, yeah, I just told you, he turned over a truck. He turned over a truck.
And Oscar's powers of perception are just unrivaled. When they first find that footprint, and he says, "It looks like a mountain. Could it be a mountain lion?" It's obviously a human footprint.
Right. And then when Tom starts explaining to him, he goes, "That's just a bunch of malarkey." Right, Tom? But yeah, then Bigfoot goes nuts in the he like goes all mayhem in those Allstate commercials, right? They should cast him in those commercials. He just tears up the base camp. But they give away his bionic
because it's the same sound effect when Bigfoot comes.
Yeah. The minute you see him running, you're like, "Oh, he's bionic."
He's bionic too.
And that fight, while it's kind of silly now, was just epic. I mean, and it goes on for like 5-6 minutes. Yeah. No dialogue whatsoever. It's just the two of them throwing down.
Can you understand me? Are you a man? Well, it never hurts to ask.
I mean, Bigfoot's tearing trees out of the ground and swatting them like a baseball.
And the fact that it's in slow motion makes it even more epic.
Right, yeah. And the aliens are watching this whole thing, and they're like, he gets hit in the left arm at one point. Oh, he's only bionic in the right arm. Oh, that's
so let's bring these aliens into our mix here. So this show reveals that Bigfoot is a construct of aliens, and they try to explain it away. Well, Bigfoot has been a legend for 250 years. Well, we have this little machine called the TLC. That makes time go by incredibly fast.
Right. We've only been here 2 years our time, but we've been here 250 yours. But that makes me laugh even more because in the second episode, there's an earthquake, and she goes, "What was that?" He goes, "That's an earthquake." "That was an earthquake? So you've been here for 250 years? You've never experienced an earthquake?"
On the San Madrian Fault? Yeah.
And then the bionic, so Steve goes missing. He follows Bigfoot into the tunnel. And now let's talk about
the iconic tunnel.
I did not know that's a Universal Studios. It was part of a tour. Did you know that?
Really? Okay,
it was part of a tour. It was actually called Glacier Avalanche.
Because it was really an impressive set piece.
If you look at that, the whole floor is just nothing but like towels to make it look kind of like rugged. But yeah,
so the track for the Universal tram would
drive through it.
Yeah.
And after that, it was known as the Bionic Man Tunnel. But it's really trippy. I mean, once he goes into this tunnel, like it just takes on a completely different vibe this whole episode because he rips off Bigfoot's arm.
And that's the big reveal because you see all the electronics coming out of the arm. That's
right.
You realize Bigfoot is entirely robot. So was there an explanation why they came up with the design of a huge hairy man to carry out their stuff?
No, it doesn't make any sense because they look just like people from the 70s all wearing like multicolored jumpsuits, which
with
I guess
golden ascots as well.
Well, you can't go around without a good ascot. Even in space, they knew that was fashion forward. So Steve goes missing. At what point you got $6 million worth of parts in this guy? You couldn't put a low jack in him, right? Every week he comes missing. There's at least one episode. But anyways, Jamie Summers calls to check in on Oscar and Steve. And he completely, is Steve there? Can I talk to Steve? Well, he's occupied right now. Like he's in the bathroom. It's like, wouldn't you want another super bionic woman to come and find him? And she's wearing a Snuggie.
Was she?
I don't know what she was wearing, but it looked like a blanket. But yeah, it was a 2-second little throwaway cameo while she's sitting in her trailer probably.
And you know what I loved? The story where Tom from the Hoopla tribe recounts how a member of his tribe went missing for about a week and came back, and he had said that he had seen the Sasquatch. And you're expecting like Tom to say, like, I'll never forget this day. The man was missing for 2 weeks. He came back, and you're like, was he missing an arm? Was he missing an eye?
No.
He saw the Sasquatch. He was incredibly freaked out, and I'll never forget it.
Oh, that's the look. When Ivan, the other geologist, they finally returned him. He was, that's the look. I will say that, so the aliens, you see them, they're all shot in like this blur vision.
Very soft focus, like you'd see Barbara Streisand being shot today.
Well, it now makes me think that Sybil Shepherd was one of these aliens. She had in her contract in Moonlighting that you had to shoot her with a Vaseline lens. So I'm pretty sure that she was probably one of their tribe.
But that's gone in the second episode.
The second episode just falls apart.
Yeah.
You watch the first episode, it is everything you want and need.
Yeah.
Because it is all over the place. And by the end of the episode, they're bringing in a nuclear bomb. Code name Snow White. Bring in Snow White. We need a nuclear bomb. It's
somehow, and this blast is going to negate the earthquake that is going to happen. So it's going to create a smaller earthquake, and I don't know how that would be possible to explode a nuclear device on a fault line.
It's a 50 megaton nuclear warhead. And he's like, yeah, call the Pentagon. Oscar wants you to bring in okay, we got it. We'll be there in an hour. It's like, who has that ability? In the one alien, the girl, Shala, was that her name? She was just like, she wanted then Steve Span something fierce.
Oh, yeah. She was loving that chest hair, like through those.
She's like, I'll be back to study you more closely later.
And I noticed like there was buttons that kept in one scene, like he only had 2 buttons undone. Next scene, he had 4 buttons.
Oh, really? I missed that. Her buttons were missing altogether.
Oh, yes, hers were missing altogether.
Yeah, and there's a scene in the second episode where she starts running with him, and I'm like, she needs a bionic bra. Yeah. So, yeah, there's a little sexual, connotations, a little toying around going on there.
And at the end of the episode, Bigfoot and Steve Austin are friends to the point where Bigfoot carries him like a baby back to the tunnel.
Well, that's so right. So the first episode ends. The second episode, Bigfoot's completely wasted. He's just a waste of character. Everything that you want to see is in the first episode. Yeah. He's laying there dormant. The entire episode is that girl trying to get into Steve's pants, and then he has to try and go stop her from stopping the nuclear warhead because the aliens are like, screw it, let them blow them up. If you kill a couple million people in California, oh well.
I would have been much more appreciative if rather than Bigfoot holding Steve Austin in his arms, like a Frankenstein carry, maybe like him, like burping Steve Austin as they were going through the tunnel. That maybe would have been more effective for me.
So yeah, the second episode was just a letdown.
But I think Andre did a very good job as Bigfoot.
Oh, absolutely. I think he took some of those moves right back with him to the wrestling ring.
I think he did, yeah.
Yeah.
And Steve got some arm tosses in there before the arm actually came off. So
yeah, they do those old school like those Captain Kirk roundhouse punches, where you can see them coming like a mile away. They reach back and it's like swings around. It's like you can't just punch somebody. Yeah, so they wipe his memory of all the aliens and Bigfoot. So when they finally find him at the end of the episode and Oscar's like, did you find Bigfoot? Would he just be like, who? Right? Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So this makes me want to go back and watch because Bigfoot came back a couple seasons later.
Yeah.
So, I want to see what that was about, too.
Now, that was not Andre the Giant.
That was not Andre. That was Lurch. Ted Cassidy, right?
Ted Cassidy, who we'll actually bring up again when we get into our confessional. Can someone explain to my 9-year-old self how Colonel is pronounced Colonel? There's no R in there. How do you pronounce the L? Colonel. And that always blew my mind as a kid. Because I had the lunch pail, and it was like Colonel Steve Austin. But that doesn't look like Colonel.
Colonel. I think that's Kal-El's cousin. Colonel.
Colonel. That always just boggled me to no end. I'm like, why? That doesn't make any sense. Still can't wrap my head around it.
So taken as a feature, these 2 episodes back to back, what kind of buckets would we give? The Return, or the Secret of Bigfoot. That was the name of the episode.
Part 1 and Part 2, yeah. I would definitely go 4 or 5 on Part 1. And I would give it maybe a 2.5 on the second part.
Yeah, I would give that battle, that fight scene, definitely solid 4. The rest of it, I would go 2.5. Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole alien thing, lame. But lame in a 70s goodness kind of way. You know, this
All right, but as a kid, you just wanted to see more Bigfoot. You saw him, you saw everything he could do in that first episode. And then it all, I mean, yeah, like you said, by second episode, they became friends to help the alien save them. But you want to see them fight side by side.
Yeah. And let's remember, of course, we cannot talk about this episode without mentioning the Bigfoot action figure that came out in the Steve Austin line of action figures back in the 70s. Because first you had Steve Austin himself, which was, you know, a line of 12-inch figures, you know, just as big as the big Star Wars 12-inch.
Yeah, 12-inch, yeah.
But they were articulated. Steve Austin had the eye that you could look through the back of his head out through his bionic eye. He had the bionic arm where you could roll up the skin and see his bionics under the skin, right?
I see your bionics.
And so then you had an Oscar figure, which was probably the most boring figure that you could possibly get. You know, Oscar. We need Oscar to give Steve Austin his orders. You know, we need that figure.
Yeah, but wasn't he the one with the like his face came off?
No, that was a different figure also.
That was a different one.
That was I forget what his name was, something Bot, right? So he could disguise himself as various characters. So I think he had an Oscar face.
Oh, man, maybe that's where I'm confusing it.
Yeah,
okay.
But it was a different figure than the bona fide Oscar figure.
Okay.
And then you had Bigfoot himself, which came out, and it was called, the figure itself was Bionic Bigfoot. Yeah, so that's a giveaway right there. If you're about to watch this episode and you don't remember the bionic aspect, if you had that toy, then you'd know anyway.
Well, I think that toy came out long after the
Yes. And episode. He came, like, as we were talking about last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, he had a boulder that he came with.
Yep. And I think his chest opened up and you could see bionics.
Yes. There was like a square.
And I'll tell you what, he was you just mentioned the 12-inch Star Wars figures. He was taller than Chewbacca in those 12-inch figures.
And the sculpt was based on Andre the Giant's look in this episode. Yeah. So yeah, it was basically an Andre the Giant as Bigfoot action figure.
Yeah. And he had the white eyes, which was really kind of cool.
Yes.
You know, took that to the next level. Were either of you part of the $6 Million Man Bionic Action Club?
No.
Do you remember these ads in the comic books? Because you could buy not only the action figure with the bionic grip, and they had a couple other things, but for 50 cents you could mail in, and you would get sticker decals, a membership card, a certificate, and an autographed picture of Steve Austin.
Really?
And be part of the club. Yeah.
As Lee Major's signature or Steve Austin?
No, it was Steve Austin's signature. It was the character's signature. Oh, man.
They couldn't get Lee Majors out of bed with Farrah Fawcett and, long enough to get to sign those pictures himself.
I'm not doing heroin.
Yeah. So, Mike, we didn't get your buckets. What are your buckets on this?
I really enjoyed the first one, so I'll give that a 4. Part 2 did nothing for me.
When watching this, did any memories come flooding back? Because this was just like a blank slate for me. I remembered nothing but that fight scene from these episodes.
Yeah.
No, nothing came from, because the whole alien ice cave, all of that sort of stuff was like almost brand new. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember that really.
But I was thinking about Wonder Woman, because it was like, Wonder Woman really holds up much better than the Bionic Man does.
You think so?
I felt so. And you can
it's been a while since I've seen a Wonder Woman.
Is there an iconic episode of Wonder Woman like this that we could possibly watch on one future TMI episode? I don't remember if there was ever like a sweeps episode of Wonder Woman where she meets some other DC character or something like that.
No. Or changes her bra or something.
Maybe we'll have to dig out an old Battle of the Network stars that we can review.
Would be
with Linda Carter, right?
Oh yeah, there you go.
When should we do our added news feature? Should we do it now, or should we wait till after our?
No, let's bring it up now. Because here's the news, which is it was just announced that the $6 Billion Man is officially in production, starring Mark Wahlberg. But the director is Travis Knight, son
of Michael Knight?
Of Michael Knight. Of Phil Knight, the guy who owns Leica Studios.
Really?
The Nike guy. So Travis Knight directed Kubo and the Two Strings, and he was a producer on Bumblebee, the Transformers movie, as well as he was attached to Missing Link. Here we are talking about Missing Link and
$6 Million Man, and here we are.
And so this is I guess this has been in the work for a while. The $6 Billion Man.
It had. I remember reading about
price
this
tag went up.
Like 5 years ago. I read about this.
And I think Wahlberg's been attached to it all along. I don't necessarily know if Mark Wahlberg is the guy you need, but he's better when he just plays like doofuses that don't really know anything.
I sincerely hope that they bring along that bionic sound effect, because you cannot do that.
How can you not? How can you not? But they'll bring in somebody to update it, and it won't be the same, and somebody will complain about it.
Do you think that they experimented with how they should show Steve Austin running? Do you think they did actually do like a test with him super fast?
I think they have to.
And then super,
yeah,
and then
if you watch
super
The
slow?
Flash now, it's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
If you watch the TV show The Flash, I think they shoot him at a high frame rate, so he's just running normal, but it makes him look like he's blurred. And I don't necessarily know if that would have been a better way, because what kid didn't jump out of a tree or jump off your swing set and go pop, 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 pop. If we were trying to do it super fast, we'd all get hurt. I mean, we probably all ended up in emergency care.
Yeah, that was the thing, though. You couldn't really jump in slow motion. That was always the drawback to
but you could do the
yeah.
So yeah, that was my news item. And I think those bongo drums and funky synthesizers, like that's like the soundtrack to our youth. I feel like every one of those shows had the funky little bongo music as he's running through the woods.
Oh yeah, definitely. So what was our confessional this week?
Confessionals.
Favorite 70s show?
I was unclear as to what we were doing.
Yeah, we didn't really establish. It could be maybe favorite 70s intro. I don't know. Yeah, I think we're just talking 70s TV show. Confessional went out the window this week.
Wasn't there some notion about Marvel and...
No, that was next week's. That's next week's when we talk Endgame. I don't know. You brought up the Incredible Hulk, Jim, before.
Yes, I did.
Which is, I went back and watched that opening. I mean, it's iconic. We've seen it a billion times. Do you know that Ted Cassidy did that narration
for the Incredible Hulk opening?
For the Incredible Hulk.
Really?
Yep. So there's your Ted Cassidy tie-in to Bigfoot as well. Yep. But that was the same episode every week. David Banner, sorry. They didn't want to use Bruce Banner. I don't know why. If you listen to Lou Ferrigno, he actually says that's because Bruce sounded gayish, and that's his words. But watching you in that opening credit, it just makes me realize that all it takes is a flat tire to really piss off the Hulk, because that's the whole catalyst for him. He's trying to change the tire in the rain.
Yep.
the tire iron slips, and he just loses his shape.
Yeah, all he needs is the nagging wife behind him. Can't you change a tire?
Right. So I would say if I had to choose a show in the 70s that I needed to watch, well, I went down the road with Battlestar Galactica, the original, 78. We watched a lot of sitcoms. It wasn't, there wasn't a lot of like nerdy stuff going on then, but The Incredible Hulk was something I watched every week, and it was always the same episode. It was the same story.
This is like $6 Million Man. Nothing ever changed from week to week. It was and there was no callbacks to any, except, they did get into it a little bit because they had the Bionic Woman that was a recurring character.
Right.
But in terms of the adventures that he had, it was just, standalone stuff completely.
That was mine.
This was the time of Happy Days, WKRP in Cincinnati, that sort of stuff.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, but to Jeff's point, there wasn't really a lot of nerdy stuff out there. So that's kind of how I frame my 70s, is with the sitcoms.
The sitcoms, yeah. Mork and
Mindy. Like Mork and Mindy, yeah. Maybe was the nerdiest sitcom that we had.
I had rainbow suspenders, my friends.
Yeah. Ooh.
Hey. It was the 70s. I was an impressionable child.
Now, I was all about the car crashes and car chases in the 70s, so my go-to was Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh.
And that song, I love that song.
Just the good old boys.
And that one shot that I loved the most was the bow and arrow shooting the dynamite.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. I think it was like Moonshine they hit. Yeah. Because Uncle Jesse, which was kind of underplayed, but they were running Moonshine.
They were, yeah.
Uncle Jesse was he was a shiner.
They were criminals. They were.
Yes, they were. That's right.
To go after them.
Yep. Yeah. Roscoe P. Coltrane, he needed to take them down.
Them Duke boys, they'll be coming by here just any moment now. I can feel it in my bones. I just can't wait to get
and Boss Hog, yeah.
You can actually, I think my sister loved this show, and we were forced to always watch it, and because I think it was Friday night.
It was before Dallas. Before Dallas.
So, I always found myself, my sister's 10 years younger than me, so I always found myself babysitting her. And she, you had 3 channels, so it doesn't like you had much to go on anyways, but I would rather probably have watched Fame than Dukes of Hazzard, but we did watch it.
Now let's settle like a long-standing question for me. Roscoe's deputy.
Enos.
Enos? Or
Enos. E-N-O-S.
Okay, it's not anus then. It's,
No, Enos. Well, he wasn't ass at times.
he was a dipstick, right?
Dipstick. I'll do you one better, which is I have family. So I grew up upstate New York, and I had cousins who had a pet pig, and his name was Enos.
What, really?
Little known fact.
You don't want to keep that to yourself.
Not anymore. I just threw it out there. Listen, it wasn't my peg. I will bring up one of your 70s show. Do you remember Salvage One?
What? Salvage One?
That sounds familiar. What was that about?
Andy Griffith, Joel Higgins. He was a farmer who got this brilliant idea to build a spaceship to mine scrap metal on Moon and in space. It lasted one season.
No, this is
you
not
don't
ringing the
remember
bell at all.
That was because again, it was like you're grasping at anything that had any kind of space related. So
you know what we didn't bring up was Buck Rogers. Also a big one.
You know what? That's actually because that was 78.
Yeah,
that would jumped right on the Star Wars bandwagon as
and
well.
they had that Jump the Shark episode with the space vampire, right? That was the big episode of Buck Rogers. That may have been a twofer as well.
I think they jumped the shark when they brought in Hawkman.
Oh, I remember him. Yep.
I don't remember. And the girl, and the Hawk woman.
Which
right?
was,
but they had cool ships. They had cool Hawk
Was that pre or post Flash Gordon when they brought in Hawkman?
Oh, that's a good question. Because Flash Gordon was 78.
No, it's Flash Gordon
80. I'm sorry.
Flash Gordon was 80.
80.
And Buck Rogers premiered in 78, but I don't know when they brought in.
I'm going to say easily probably like second or third season they brought in Hawkman.
Okay.
Yeah, Gil Gerard, he don't fit in his spacesuit anymore. That's all I got to say.
The poor man's Lee Majors.
Yeah. Yeah, but you had Wilma Deering, and she more than made up for that. That's all we got, boys.
Yeah. That's about it this week, right? So, again, next week, we've been building up for a year to this. Endgame. We're going to see how it all turns out.
I don't know if I'm ready for that. I don't know if I'm prepared for this.
Yeah.
This is going to be an emotional roller coaster. This is going to be...
It's like 10 years of your life summarized in 3 hours.
Yeah. This is the end of an era. This is unprecedented what they were able to pull off. This huge overarching narrative. And it doesn't matter what comes next. I don't think it's not going to have...
It's not going to have the cachet that these characters.
No, because now you have all these big name guys that want to get involved at this level. You know, make me a superhero, put me in. You know.
But yeah, now they're forced to kind of move beyond that initial cast of characters and now start to go into the B level of Ant-Man, Captain Marvel. Those are going to be those.
I think you're going to see more.
They're stepping up.
Galactic. You're going to see more outer spacey characters. You got the Celestials in development, which are never that interesting to begin with, but
the
Eternals, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think Angelina Jolie is attached to that. But see, that's what I'm saying. But you now have all these top name stars, you know, looking at this cash cow and now wanting to be a part of it, where now we're just casting big name people. Oh, look, here it is. Harrison Ford is playing the Watcher.
And it's just a matter of time. Now that Fox has come under the Disney banner, how long is it going to be until they bring back Fantastic Four, bring X-Men into it? Because you know that they're probably already in talks how they can do that.
I feel that you're going to get a sense of that by the end of this movie, but maybe not.
Kevin Feige said that it'll be a long, long time before they hit the X-Men.
Well, at least they're not just diving in and be like, oh, look what we got to play with now. Well, if they take their time, I'm in. I'm not going anywhere.
And how they're going to continue to tie the Spider-Man universe that Sony has created into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'd like to see how they continue on with that.
I heard he's a long way from home.
And it's unfortunate.
He's far from home.
It is unfortunate that, as much as I love that they are coming out with a new Spider-Man movie this year, that because of that, you do know that Spider-Man does somehow make it out okay from Endgame, but it's just a question of how does he make it out?
I would be very thrilled to see Fantastic Four done properly. I guess. Well, we got to get through this one first.
And Mike, I know that you are a big non-believer in the Fantastic Four as a cinematic property.
Yeah, I don't think you can do Mr. Fantastic.
But if anybody can do it, Marvel can. They may have. Yes, I agree with you. They may have to reimagine what Mr. Fantastic is, but
but that now you're going down that road of the last one, which is let's come up with some alternative thing that's like, that's not the Fantastic Four. You gotta stay true to these guys.
Yeah, you do.
Stay true. I just want to see Galactus. We got to see ourselves the next big bad guy.
Or a decent Silver Surfer.
Maybe it would be cool if I just brought Chris Evans back as the Torch and didn't explain it to anybody. That'd be great.
Or I know who I'd love to see is Annihilus. That would be a great cinematic.
Oh, he's like, the Negazone.
Yeah.
Right, Negative Zone.
Yes, the Negative Zone. So yeah, that could all be on the horizon. Who knows?
All right. Well, we're gonna hit all this stuff next week.
Yeah, I can't wait next week.
I'm gonna need a nap.
The countdown.
And I'm gonna need a colostomy bag. 3 hours. Woofa. It's gonna be bad.
Ooh.
So, all
right,
boys.
Hopefully next week's episode won't be 3 hours.
Let's hope not. It may be. You never know the way this group talks.
All right.
We're wrapping up. Hasta la vista, baby.
Officer Judy Hobbs, CPD, how are you?
I am doing just
fine.
as well as I can be. What?
Hang in there.
Can I do
Well, I was hoping you could run a play.
for you?
Well, I was hoping you could.
Today.